All right, I'm in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 5. In this message, I'm going to introduce the topic of faith. There's a lot that needs to be said about the topic of faith. I'll continue in another message after this where I'll explain my faith in more detail. But for this message, I'd just like to talk about the subject in general, mostly from the world's perspective, so that you have a better understanding of what's going on in the world around you, and also to see how and where you fit in the topic of faith in general. Right? So to start with, I'm going to start with just a simple question, just an open-ended question, and that is, tell me about your faith. You know, it's a good question, right? Just tell me about your faith. You know, what does that really mean to you, and what are the things that are important to you that you think would describe your faith? How would you describe your faith? You know, things like that. Tell me about your faith can sometimes be a little intimidating, I suppose, and so rephrase the question in other ways that might seem a little bit more appealing, you know, that would invite someone to respond as opposed to just, you know, the declaration, tell me about your faith. You know, about something like, what does faith mean to you? You know, what kinds of things that you believe that would qualify in that area, you know, in that subject. All right. Now, this is an important question for you to be able to answer for yourself, right? I mean, if someone was to ask you, or if you had the opportunity to share your faith with someone else, well, what is your faith that you are sharing? You know, I mean, what does that really mean? Okay. If you were to take a moment and you were to look into your general community, all right, and you were to just simply look through a directory, and you will find when you look through a directory that there are many different organizations that represent themselves as being an organization of faith. Okay, and you'll find that there is a variety, of course, depending upon the size of your population. But if you got a reasonably good sized population that has enough people that there would be enough interest collectively to be able to assemble together, then you'll find a pretty good spread, you know. Or check the directory in a very highly populated area and see, you know, what are the different organizations that exist that seem to be based on some kind of faith, you know. And you'll find that there are many different kinds. There is a lot, you know, and some of them may be kind of compatible with each other, but you'll find that there are a lot that are not compatible with anybody, you know, that they have their own thing going on. Now, in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 5, Paul says that there is one faith. Okay, well, if there is one faith, and yet you check the directory, and there seems to be, a huge variety of different ideas concerning what faith may be, then that should tell you that most of them are probably wrong. You know, if you have 100 different options of 100 different kinds of organizations, or 100 different kinds of belief systems or faith, there's going to definitely be more than just 100. But if we were to just pick 100, then that should tell you that 99 out of that 100, are not correct. All right, they don't believe things that God would say are true. Okay, they believe things that God would say are not true. And if you consider the probability of 99 out of 100 not being correct, that doesn't mean that the last one, you know, the one out of the 100, is necessarily correct either. It doesn't just automatically mean that. What I think it means is that the probability that that last one is correct just doesn't look so good. Okay, it just doesn't look so good. All right, and I am perfectly comfortable with saying that, perhaps None of them know their God. Because that's really the determiner, or the way to determine whether or not the faith is valid is, do you know the true and living God? Do you really know him? Do you know what he thinks about what is true and what is not true? Okay? Now, it turns out that, the different variety of organizations, or the different kinds of faith or groups of people that may exist, if you were to go and participate, maybe, or just visit these different organizations just to see what they're about. And of course, I would encourage you to do that. Go and find out what these people are doing and what they're thinking and what's important to them. It can be an interesting experience. I still do that to this day. I'll go out every once in a while whenever I have some extra free time and find out what people are doing, what they're thinking. Sometimes I can have a interesting conversation. Most of the time I don't, but still I like to go out and see what other people are doing in the world that that I'm a part of. And you're going to find that there are a lot of people who are not really there for the faith that the organization is usually trying to promote. Okay, that they're not necessarily there because they want to embrace the beliefs of the organization. You have to be careful as you interact with people and understand that not everybody is there for the reasons that may be advertised. I've explained this in a number of messages on the issues related to the church. That when you go and you visit a church, you have to consider that there are a lot of people who are not there to know their God. They're not really there for that. They're there for the music program. They're there to give their kids something to do and to take a break from their kids. Those are the two most common reasons as to why people go to church. For the children's program and for the music. The message, okay, kind of, sort of. But most people that I've encountered, without question, are there for reasons that are other than the truth that may be proclaimed by the speaker of the day. That's not necessarily why they're there. They kind of tolerate that in order to enjoy the other services that the organization provides. All right? It's the same thing in any other kind of organization. The organizations that are not part of the Christian world, there are many different groups of people who assemble together, and it is probable that the people who are there, especially if the groups are relatively small, it's probable that they do embrace to some degree the beliefs that are espoused by the organization. But they may also be there just for the music program if they got one, or for the kids program if they've got one. They might just be there for that, or because they have a relative who's there, somebody who's close to them relationally who wants to participate in that, and so they just kind of go along. They may have friends there. There may be activities that people are involved in, especially after the meeting. Those are the kinds of things that usually come up, when people are participating in any group. And it's no different between the people who are part of a church and a part of an organization that would not really be classified as a church. So you need to keep that in mind, all right? That just because someone attends a certain organizational congregation of some kind, that doesn't automatically mean that they embrace the faith that is officially published, or proclaimed by that organization. All right, this is important to see. Well, if that's the case, then you really have to take everyone individually, which is the same thing in any organization, as I've explained previously. So there are people who will go and participate in congregations of people, right? Who are identifying themselves as organizations or groups of faith. And is that really what they're interested in? Okay, what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of people who just are not that interested in the issues or the topics related to faith. They just don't really care. It's just not that important to them. These are people who I would say fit into two different categories. The first category of people are those who just don't have any real deep convictions. Okay? And then the second category of people are people who are intentionally dishonest and deceptive. Okay? But both groups of people, they will be very comfortable with being a part of an assembly of other folks of some kind of faith, of some kind. They'll be very comfortable with that if what these people believe, all right, is reasonably compatible with what the person already believes. Okay? And that's the struggle that most people have to endure and go through. And that's the struggle of everyone has faith. Okay? Everyone has some degree of faith. They have some degree of belief about the way things are or the way things should be. They have their own interests in terms of the philosophical ideas that they like and, of course, what they don't like. All right? And this gets in the way. Okay? People have their own beliefs about what is true and what they don't want to be true. Okay? They have their own beliefs concerning those things. And these decisions that people make about what they are going to believe are normally based on what is important to them personally in their daily lives. They're living their daily lives and they have certain things that they want. They have certain things that they want to do. They have a desire for a certain way of life. And so the beliefs that they will embrace will be beliefs that will be compatible with the conclusions that they want to reach to or reach in their lives. All right? So people will always have some kind of belief system. Okay? Some kind of faith. Some kind of hope of the way things should be. All right? The way things are. They have this idea about what they really want the truth to be, how they really want the world to function. Okay? They have some desires concerning what they want to be real. Okay? And so they will look for groups of people who share their values, who share their beliefs about the way things should be. They will find people who will be compatible enough with them to form a relationship with them and to participate in each other's lives. This has nothing to do with what God thinks is true. This has to do with what these individuals want to be true. Okay? And there are a lot of people who live that way. They don't care if there's a God and if he has any opinion about things. They don't care what he may think or what he may be doing. All they care about is themselves and what would they like the truth to really be. Okay? And so they will look for others who believe things that are compatible with the truths that they want to believe. And this becomes their faith. Okay? You ask them, tell me about your faith. They could say, well, I believe in this, and I believe in this, and I believe in this, and I think this is the way things are, and I think this is the way things should be, and this is what I think about eternity and the spiritual realm, that which is unseen. Those spiritual things, the spiritual dimension that they think might exist, they have their own idea, their own belief about what it should be like. Okay? And so they will establish their own definition in their own minds of what this faith is. But in general, you will discover that when people approach it from that point of view, they are not compatible with God. They're not their belief system is not compatible with the way that God thinks. And what he says is true, what he says is real. But you do have, these people who at least have some degree of conviction, at least of the way they would like things to be. The other group of people are intentionally dishonest. They're intentionally manipulative and deceptive, and they are looking to cause harm to someone else. That's, and they hope to involve themselves in somebody's life, become a part of their life, and then destroy that person's life, and then scavenge off of whatever may be left from the destruction of that person's life. There are people who are like this, just to give you an example. And so in order to find people who they will be able to take advantage of, okay, that's their idea of a relationship. The purpose of a relationship is to destroy somebody else and take advantage of them in whatever ways they possibly can, to take whatever they can get from this other person for the indulgence of their own flesh. Okay, there are people who are like this. I've encountered lots of people like this. I know people like this. All right, and these people, they will find, they'll look for and they will find an assembly of other people for the purpose of building a relationship with someone and scavenging off of whatever they may have. That's just what they do. That's who they are. And so they don't care what the belief system is. They don't care what the truth is. They don't care what faith may be or what faith may look like. They don't really care. They will pretend, they will lie, they will be dishonest and deceptive and suggest that they do believe in these things because they have a hidden objective, and that is to form a relationship with someone and take advantage of them. That other person only exists for the indulgence of this deceptive person's flesh. All right? And there are a lot of people like that, okay? And I need to mention that because they can usually find better opportunities in the non-church environments, okay? Because at least within the church environments, within the churches, at least there's usually some degree of interest in what is true and what is real. I'm not saying there aren't people who to take advantage of others in the church. I'm saying that I have found that while there are many, most are found in other organizations and in other places because it's easier for them to fit in to an assembly of people who don't really have any deep convictions with regards to what is true according to God's point of view. All right, and so there are just a lot more opportunities in these other organizations. You will find those who are looking for what they want to believe, and then you have those who really don't care. They're just looking for how they're going to manipulate and take advantage of somebody else. Okay, so you will encounter people like this the more you get out and explore the world, and meet different kinds of people. And you need to understand where people are coming from, okay? For those who are being dishonest and deceptive, you just need to let them go. Just leave them alone. Don't allow them to really be in your life. And maybe, perhaps, if they destroy themselves enough, it's possible, not probable, but there is a possibility that they might decide to consider those things that are real and true, and they might consider that maybe there is a God who they need to get to know and who they are accountable to. But for the most part, for those people, there's nothing you can do with them. At least with the people who are looking for those things that are compatible with what they want to believe, at least you got something to work with there. There's something to work with, at least, with those who at least have some degree of conviction, of some kind. All right, so these are the things that I wanted to mention. That people believe what they like, they believe what makes sense. They definitely are looking for those things that fit into the framework of what they want to believe. They're looking. They have their idea of the framework of what they want to believe, and they're looking for those things that fit into that framework. Okay. Let me review my notes a little bit. Sorry, I'm kind of a little off. I'm really tired. I work a lot. I've been doing a lot, and it's just going to be like this sometimes. This is just one of those messages that's not going to be so well put together. All right. The other thing that people are doing is that they're looking for things that they can believe in order to kind of avoid who they really are. All right? This is a way of dealing with the issues related to self-discovery. When a person starts to get in touch with the fact that they're not perfect, they're not the greatest thing since sliced bread, all right, that they really are wicked and evil. All right? Well, when they start getting confronted with those kinds of things, then what happens is that they're going to look for beliefs that can help them to avoid coming to terms with their condition, with who they really are. They're looking for ways to avoid that. There are a lot of people who want to avoid God. They do. They want to avoid him. They don't want him to be in their lives because they don't want to be confronted over the issues related to their sin, to the issues related to who they really are or who they want to be. And they don't want God in their life because they don't want to be confronted with the fact that they might very well go to hell, and that would be justified. People just don't really want to face that. And so when they go out into the world of faith, they will usually start with what they do not want to believe. Okay, which is kind of backwards, but that's what people will do. They'll start with what they do not want to believe. Well, I don't want to believe that there's a hell. I don't want to believe that there's a God who says that this is wrong and this is right. I don't want to believe in that. I need something else, probably because it's not compatible with the framework that they want to have for their own life. So what they will do is they will go and seek out those organizations of faith or those belief systems or those philosophies or those ideas that are opposed to what they don't want. Okay? It doesn't necessarily mean that they want those beliefs. It just means that they want something that is opposed to what they don't want. All right? So they'll embrace faith, they'll embrace beliefs, knowing that they don't really care about these things. They don't really have deep conviction about these beliefs. They just practice them in their minds. They try to incorporate them into their lives so that they're ready for you, when you come along and you ask them to tell you about their faith, and they want an answer. They want an answer that will protect them, that will keep them safe from having to deal with the truth. All right? If you try to argue with them about their beliefs, they will probably be very comfortable with arguing because they don't really have any convictions about them anyway. So what if they lose the argument? It doesn't matter. That's not the purpose of their beliefs. The purpose of their beliefs is so that they have an alternative to believe, an alternative of something to believe that is not true, and so they have something that they can hold on to and embrace that helps them avoid what is real. All right, and I've seen that happen a lot. Okay, so what are the truths that define the one true faith? In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 5, that there is one faith, what are those specific truths that define what that one faith is? Okay, now that's a big question, and I don't have enough time in this message to try to answer that well, and so I'm going to do that in the next message. Instead, I'm going to move forward a little bit and just address the general topic of faith. I'm going to turn to Hebrews. In Hebrews chapter 11, we have a general definition, and this comes up quite often when this question is asked, because it says what faith is. You'll ask somebody, well, tell me about your faith. And they'll say, oh, well, in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Okay, well, when does this usually come into play? Well, it comes into play when somebody doesn't know anything, when they don't really believe anything. That's when this usually comes into play. It is, it is something that somebody will hope for. They will hope that there is truth. They will hope that there is something real. They will hope that there is something to really believe. And that is their faith. It's just simply an expression of hope. That they have hope in these things. You'll find this when there is a discussion about a certain belief. That there is a certain belief that people want to believe, and it makes no sense at all. Probably the most common example of this is the topic of the Trinity. All right, when people are trying to explain their belief concerning the Trinity, the more people think about it, the more they realize it just doesn't make any sense. It's just not consistent with the one God. It just doesn't fit. The more that a person explores that, if they don't explore it very far, then it's kind of easy to embrace the idea. But what happens is that in the midst of discussions and debates and arguments about these things, what people will often default to is to say, well, it's something that you cannot comprehend. It's something that you are to apprehend. As if, okay, we have some multi-syllable words that we can use, and so that means that this is true. Okay? Because we have comprehend and we have apprehend. These are bigger words. They got more than 2 syllables. All right? And so, if we've got some bigger words, somehow that makes it real. That now defines reality. And when people say, it just doesn't make any sense, the conclusion is, well, you just have to have faith. But that, I don't see that as being legitimate faith. I really don't. But for a lot of people, that's what it means. It means that we hope that something is true. Okay, we don't care whether it is true or not. We just hope it is. Okay? And so, this happens a lot where people will just say, well, my faith is, I'm hoping. I'm hoping that this is true. I'm hoping that this is real. I'm hoping that this will be my future. That's what it means to have faith for a lot of people. But I don't think that was what Paul was intending to say here. Now, I did do a complete verse-by-verse study on the book of Hebrews. There is one in the Living God Ministries radio archive that's really old. Those were some of the first recordings I did. They're okay, but the videos that I did, and I posted a live version on Aaron Budgeon Live and a regular version on Aaron Budgeon, the channel that I'm uploading this to. Those messages on Hebrews, I think, were really good, and definitely much better than the radio programs that I recorded. So much so that I'd like to replace the radio programs one day if I ever get the opportunity. It would be nice to do that. All right, but let's take a look at this just in the context of the topic we have here. The idea of faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Okay, now we definitely have a lot of things to hope for. Okay, and it is good to hope for things. You know, there are things that we hope are true. God has revealed things to us, and we hope that they are true. But, you know, the issue is that you need to start with what He has said, with what He has declared about the way things are and the way things will be and the way things once were. All right? We can have faith, legitimate faith in those things that we are hoping for. We are hoping, in effect, that these things are true, but you better start with what God has declared. Because if you don't, chances are you're going to start hoping in things that are not real at all and never will be. And so the hope will never be realized in a positive way. All right, now there are a lot of things that we hope for because of what God has declared, right? There are a lot of things that we hope for. And just the fact that we hope for these things is a form of evidence that they exist. That's what he's referring to. That there are a lot of things that we hope for, and this can become evidence that there is the existence of these things. Heaven, for example, all right, the kingdom of heaven. We hope for the kingdom of heaven because God has told us that there is a kingdom of heaven. We've never seen it, but our hope in the kingdom of heaven is a form of evidence that there is a kingdom of heaven. Okay, now this doesn't have to be for everything, all right, but you will find that there will be some things that do kind of sort of fit into this category. There are a lot of other things that are clear evidence just in and of themselves. There are many things that are real that provide us with evidence of something to hope for. Okay, and that to me is much better faith than faith in those things that we have not yet encountered. Okay, so this is what I try to encourage people to do. I try to encourage people to start with those things that they can see are definitely real and true, okay, the evidence, and have hope based on the evidence that's shown. All right, and the simplest example, of course, is the world around you, all that is of nature. Okay, if you look at the plants and the trees and the animals and us, all living things that exist in this earth, on this world, you will find that the more you study and explore this world from a general life science kind of perspective, the more you will explore that, the more you will find that there is a lot of evidence to show that this was designed, okay? That this just didn't happen by accident. The probability of this ever happening by accident, in fact, there are many situations and circumstances where not even by accident could it really happen, all right? Because of the interdependencies. This is just not going to be real. It's not going to be real if you don't recognize that there are some fundamental things that have definitely been designed. Okay, and so if there is the existence of design, well, then that would show that there must be a designer. So we have evidence that gives us something to hope for. We now can hope that we can get to know this designer, the person who created all of the things and who created us as well. There is a hope that we may discover who he is. And this to me is a much better foundation for the subject of faith, is to work with that. Not what it is that we would like, not what sounds good to us, not what fits into the framework that we want to exist, all right? But instead to start with what God has revealed clearly to us, and to have hope that is built on the evidence of the things that we are able to see and touch and understand in the world that we are a part of. Okay, that these are the things that will give us a foundation to work from, to have hope in those things that we do not see. All right. So again, as I mentioned earlier, I know this message is not so good, per se, but like I said, I'm just tired, and I'm going to, I'll get some rest and hopefully do better with the next one. But for those of you who are using this for your small groups, this is the question. Tell me about your faith. All right? And I will tell you about my faith in the next message. Thanks.